The first time my father hit me, it wasn't because I screamed, it was because I spoke. I was 9. I'd forgotten to make breakfast. For my brother. Not for myself. Not for the family. Just for him. And that was enough. He didn't ask why. He didn't listen. He just went to the drawer. The one with the belt. In our house, obedience wasn't earned, it was beaten in. And love? Love was conditional. On silence. So I stayed quiet. For 8 more years, I cooked, I cleaned, I folded shirts I didn't wear, and they called it discipline. But on one ordinary Sunday, over a glass of orange juice, I said 3 words that changed everything. Peel them yourself. What followed wasn't just rebellion. It was the beginning of a silence so loud, it tore the house down. They handed me an apron before I even knew how to spell my name. I was 9, still missing my front teeth, still believing that if I was quiet enough, maybe I'd be loved enough. That was the year my mom, Kayla Morgan, stopped calling me sweetheart and started calling me helper. And not in a cute little girl playing dress-up way. I mean helper like maid, like the one who wiped the kitchen counter while my brother Logan got to wipe barbecue sauce off his PlayStation controller. In our house in Springfield, Missouri, being born a girl meant being born less. It meant your value was measured by what you could clean, fold, or fetch before anyone raised their voice. Logan was the prince, I was the broomstick. He got his own bedroom, his own bathroom, and his own ice cream tub in the freezer labeled Logan's Do Not Touch. I got to scrub that freezer when it smelled like sour milk. The rules were always clear, carved deep into every chore chart taped on the fridge with magnets shaped like happy little cows. Girls don't question, girls don't complain, girls serve. And when I asked why Logan never had to do dishes or vacuum the stairs, my dad, Dean Morgan, a man whose word was final even when he was wrong, would grunt out the same line like a prayer. He's a boy. You'll understand when you're older. I'm older now, and I understand. It was never about gender. It was about control. The first time the belt came out, I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd just forgotten to cook breakfast for Logan before school. I was in 4th grade. I still slept with a teddy bear named Maple. But Dad didn't see a child. He saw a challenge. He opened that second drawer in the hallway dresser, the one we all pretended didn't exist, and he said calmly, as if he were reciting the weather report, "You need to remember your place." Then he looped the belt once in his hand, crack like punctuation. I remember standing there barefoot in the kitchen, the tile cold against my heels, and thinking, what's my place? And that's when it started. Not the pain, that came later. What started was the shrinking. My voice got smaller, my steps got quieter. I learned how to fold towels exactly the way Mom liked. Tri-fold, tight corners, stack by size. I memorized everyone's breakfast orders. Logan liked his eggs scrambled with too much cheese. Dad wanted coffee first, no eye contact. Mom liked her toast barely golden, and her compliments even rarer. And through it all, they said the same sentence more times than I heard my own name. Be useful or be invisible. So I chose useful, because invisible was worse. And maybe, just maybe, if I did it all right, if I ironed perfectly, smiled at the right time, didn't flinch when Logan barked orders, I'd be seen. Not just as a daughter, but as someone who mattered. But let me tell you something. When your worth depends on your silence, your obedience, your service, you stop being a daughter. You become an appliance. By the time I was 12, I ran that house better than a drill sergeant, and no one ever said thank you. Not once. But the belt? That one came out again. Many times. Not because I failed, but because they could. And I took it, every sting, every reminder, until one day I didn't. That part comes later. But this? This is where it started. With an apron. And an order. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of morning where the air felt heavy, like it knew something was about to crack. I was 17. Old enough to drive, but not old enough to decide what time I could eat. Old enough to fill out college applications, but not old enough to have a voice at my own dinner table. That morning, I was sweating through a faded t-shirt, standing at the ironing board, pressing Logan's khaki pants for some party I wasn't invited to. His outfit had to be perfect. His cologne had to be expensive. His ego had to stay polished. And apparently, I was in charge of all 3. I remember pressing the final crease, my arms sore from the motion. My stomach growled, but I knew better than to eat before everyone else. I walked downstairs hoping, just hoping, there might still be a sip of orange juice left in the fridge. And that's when I saw him. Logan, feet kicked up on the table, sipping the last glass of orange juice like it was liquid gold. I blinked. "Did you save any for me?" I asked, voice low, careful. He didn't even look at me, just smirked and said, "You're lucky I don't make you squeeze the oranges, too." It wasn't the words that did it. It was the smirk. That knowing, spoiled, practiced grin of a boy who'd never washed a dish in his life, but still believed the world owed him room temperature juice in a glass that sparkled. And without thinking, without asking permission from the scared little girl still living in my spine, I said it. Then squeeze them yourself. 3 words. Soft, quiet, dangerous. The room went still. Logan stared. And then, click, I heard the sound of a knife sliding through tension. My mother walked in from the hallway holding a laundry basket. She froze mid-step, her eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" she asked slowly, like her ears needed a moment to translate. I felt my throat tighten. "But my chest?" My chest expanded. "I said I'm done," I breathed, louder now. "I'm not doing his chores anymore. I'm not his maid." It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a breakdown. It was a declaration. And in that moment, I knew I'd lit a match. My father's footsteps were thunder on the stairs. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He stormed into the kitchen, eyes locked on me like I was a busted pipe leaking rebellion. He went straight to the drawer. The one we all knew too well. The belt drawer. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "You've forgotten your place," he said, wrapping the belt once in his hand, the leather hissing like a snake that smelled defiance. Mom said nothing. Logan sat back and watched, smiling like it was primetime TV. And me? I didn't beg. I didn't flinch. When that belt hit my ribs, I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. But for the first time, the pain felt clean. Because I knew this was the last time. That night, I walked out with a rolled-up sleeping bag, $5, and a rib that clicked when I breathed. I didn't leave a note. Didn't take anything that didn't belong to me. Not even the old toothbrush they made me share with my cousin on holidays to save space. I didn't run. I didn't look back. I just walked. And with every step, something quiet burned brighter inside me. A spark. A small, defiant spark. That would one day grow into something much louder than any belt could ever be. I didn't have a plan. Just $5, a sleeping bag, and a bruised rib that throbbed every time I breathed too deep. But what I had, more than anything, was conviction. I didn't walk out of that house with rage. I walked out with clarity. The air outside felt different, not warmer, not safer, but real. And for the first time in years, it didn't smell like control. I ended up on Megan's porch. She was the one person who used to pass me notes in algebra that said, "You okay?" even when I nodded like I was fine. I didn't have to say anything. When she opened the door and saw my face, she just stepped aside and whispered, "Come in." Her parents weren't saints. They weren't rich or soft-spoken or overly affectionate, but they looked at me that night like I was a person, not a problem. They cleared out space in the basement, stacked old boxes against the wall, rolled out a thin mattress, gave me a faded quilt that smelled like dust and detergent. They didn't ask for details. They just let me rest. And in that cellar, under a flickering bulb and a leaky pipe, something strange happened. I began to breathe. Not shallow survival breaths like I'd been doing for years. Real ones. In. Out. Slow, painful, free. The bruises on my side turned purple, then green, then yellow. The ache in my shoulder dulled. But the silence? That's what stayed sharp. I kept waiting for my phone to buzz. A message. A threat. Even a guilt trip. But nothing. Not from Mom, not from Dad, not even Logan. They had erased me faster than I walked away. Like I was never carved into their lives to begin with. Like the floors I scrubbed didn't shine because of me. Like the dinners I cooked didn't fill their stomachs. Like the quiet obedience they demanded wasn't bought with my entire childhood. And I wish I could say I felt relieved. But the truth? It cut deeper than the belt ever did. I was disposable. And that's when something in me snapped, but not the kind of snap that breaks. It was the kind that builds. I pulled out an old spiral notebook from Megan's bookshelf, and I started writing, not stories, not poetry, just lists. Everything I'd done since I was 10. Make grocery list every Sunday. Sort whites and colors, 2 tablespoons of bleach. Logan's sheets on Mondays, his towels on Wednesdays. Iron Dad's uniforms before 7 a.m. Meal prep, no mushrooms for Mom, extra cheese for Logan. Scrub downstairs bathroom, twice if company's coming. Refill the soap, mop, fold, smile. Be useful or be invisible. It wasn't a diary. It was a ledger. Not of love, but of debt. A quiet, calculated inventory of what I gave every single day. And they owed, not in money, but in something heavier. They owed me in absence, in silence, in all the little pieces of me they used up like paper towels and never thought twice about. And I swore, if they ever tried to pull me back, to pretend none of it ever happened, I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't plead. I'd do what I'd never been allowed to do before. Nothing. And that would be louder than anything they'd ever heard. It started small. A whisper here, a glance there. Like the world was sending me quiet confirmations that walking away wasn't a mistake. It was survival. I was helping Megan's mom pull weeds from the front yard one Saturday when I heard it. A voice I hadn't expected. Mrs. Darlene Whitaker, our old neighbor. She was walking her dog down the block, a tiny thing in a sweater that looked more expensive than anything I'd ever owned. She stopped, tilted her head, squinted at me like I was a ghost. "Your mama okay?" she asked, not out of kindness, just curiosity. "Saw her last week at the store, struggling with bags, looked like she was limping." I blinked, shrugged. "I guess she'll manage." And that was the moment I realized the cracks had started showing. I didn't need to spy. The world would tell me everything. Mrs. Whitaker kept talking. Apparently Logan had been late to school almost every day that week. My dad came into work with wrinkled shirts, Dean Morgan, the man who used to measure respect in how crisp his collars were. My mom had asked the church for meal assistance, claiming she had a slipped disc. She lied, because she was too proud to admit the truth. That I was gone. That their house, the one they ruled like a kingdom, was now falling apart because the invisible servant had vanished. But the best part? They weren't telling anyone what really happened. They said I had gone off early to college. Life experience, they called it. Funny. That's what I'd been begging for my entire life. Now they were handing it to me, as a cover story. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just went back inside and opened the notebook. My ledger. My record. Every chore, every sacrifice, every drop of myself I'd poured into their comfort, now accounted for. And I added a new entry. 2 loads of laundry left unfolded, 1 frozen meal burned, church meal request filed. I wasn't petty. I wasn't vengeful. But I was precise. They thought they were punishing me with silence. What they didn't know was silence had become my weapon. I didn't write blog posts. Didn't post cryptic quotes online. Didn't call extended family to share my side of the story. I didn't have to. Because when you remove the engine from a machine, it doesn't scream. It sputters. And then it stops. 3 weeks after I left, I got my first message. Email from Mom. No greeting, no question if I was alive or breathing. Just, "Logan's awards dinner is Thursday. None of his suits are ironed. Come home, this is ridiculous." No apology. No ownership. Just demand. I stared at the screen and smiled. Not a cruel smile, not triumphant. Just tired. Then came the second message, a week later, from Dad this time. "This is childish. You think the world's going to cater to your attitude? Come home. Apologize. We'll let you earn your place again." Let me. I screenshotted both. Not for revenge. Not for court. But as proof for myself that I wasn't crazy. That everything I remembered was real. By then I had moved full-time into Megan's place. Her parents cleared out the storage closet and turned it into a room just for me. There was no closet, but there was a lamp, a soft one, and a door I could close without fear. And in that stillness, I started listening to something I hadn't heard in years. Myself. The girl who once knew exactly how much detergent to use. Who once managed 3 people's lives while pretending she didn't have one of her own. That girl? She didn't need to yell. She didn't need to fight. She just needed to vanish. Because sometimes the only payment the world understands is absence. And that's exactly what I gave. It had been 5 months. 5 months since I left. 5 months since my name stopped existing in the Morgan household. Unless it was scribbled onto a grocery list no one knew how to complete anymore. Then the news came. Grandma Estelle passed away. Not my mom's mother, the one who once slapped my hand for touching food before Logan filled his plate. No, this was my dad's mom. The only adult who had ever looked me in the eye and whispered, "You deserve more, baby girl." She didn't fight for me, but she saw me. And sometimes that's enough to keep a child breathing. The funeral was set at a small Baptist church just outside Springfield. White brick walls, wilting roses on the steps. The kind of place where grief wore heels and silence came with side eyes. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just showed up. No makeup, black jeans, clean shirt, hair pulled back in a quiet bun. Simple, clean, unapologetically me. The moment I walked through the doors, heads turned like dominoes. Whispers trailed behind me like smoke. "Is that... Did she come back?" I walked straight down the aisle, took the last pew in the back, and sat. No one said a word. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not Logan. My mother stiffened the second she saw me. Like my presence was an offense. Like I was a stain she couldn't scrub out of this perfect grieving moment. My father looked like he'd aged 20 years. His shoulders hunched, his belt absent. Not slung at his waist. Not looped in silent threat. Just gone. But the weight? Oh, it was still there. Dragging behind every step like a shadow made of guilt. And Logan? He didn't look at me. Couldn't. Because if he did, he might remember who used to shine his shoes before every Sunday service. He might remember who never got a seat at the table, not until the dishes were done. The pastor spoke. The choir sang something soft and worn out. And the casket? Closed. Just like the past they never wanted to open again. But my presence, that was the real disruption. the ghost they couldn't bury. After the service, I stepped outside into the sunlight, held the folded memorial program in one hand. The breeze felt clean, honest. And then I heard her. Abigail, my cousin. She wasn't like Logan, she didn't believe the family fairy tale. She walked up slowly, no makeup, no judgment in her eyes. Just truth. They're falling apart, she said, no prelude, no drama, just fact. I looked at her, calm. I know. She hesitated, then added, they're afraid of you. I raised an eyebrow. They should be. She exhaled. They say you're cold now, ruthless, heartless. I didn't blink. I just smiled, a soft, clean smile. They trained me well. She didn't laugh. She just whispered, they're selling the house. My fingers twitched. Not with joy, just with finality. Abigail continued, it's not for the money. They just can't handle it anymore. The silence, the empty rooms, the routines that don't make sense without you. I nodded, because I already knew. That house? It wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by me. By every step I used to take on those floors. By the absence of slammed doors. By the void where my yes sirs used to echo. And for the first time, they were living inside a house they'd built out of obedience, and now couldn't survive without the one person they broke to maintain it. Not because they missed me, but because they missed what I gave. And they'd finally realized, silence isn't empty. Sometimes it speaks the loudest. I didn't send a letter. I didn't write a manifesto or a list of demands. I sent a box. It was an old cardboard box, the kind you get from grocery stores when you're too broke to buy plastic bins. I taped it shut with the kind of care you reserve for wounds. Inside, I packed every scrap of obligation they'd ever tossed at me. Birthday cards that weren't really birthday cards, just reminders to be better this year. The cheap silver locket Mom gave me on my 13th birthday with the note, so you always remember, we didn't have to keep you. Yeah, she wrote that. I packed the chore lists, the ones printed off on neon paper and taped to the fridge with cartoon magnets. Every task next to my name, never Logan's. Logan didn't get tasks. Logan got praise for existing. I placed it all in the box like relics, artifacts from a version of me they tried to chisel into stone. Then one quiet Tuesday, I drove to the old house. The one that used to hum with my hands, my steps, my silence. It was smaller than I remembered. Grayer. Even the lawn looked tired. No one was home. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't even step on the welcome mat. I just left the box on the porch and walked away. No note, no threat, no signature. Because the box said everything. And when they opened it, they'd know. I was done performing. Done being their secret scaffolding, holding up their illusion of a happy family. From that moment on, they would feel my absence in every corner of that house. And they did. Megan's cousin lived 2 streets over. Every few weeks, she'd give me updates I didn't ask for. Your mom was out front yesterday trying to fix the garden by herself. She looked exhausted. Logan dragged a trash bag full of laundry to the laundromat. I think the washer finally broke. Your dad? I think he fell. He's using a cane now. I'd nod, smile faintly. Then go back to folding flyers for my nursing classes. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need their pain explained. I just needed to know they were feeling it. The shift. The hollow. The noise that used to be me, now gone. They were used to reaction. Used to my crying, my begging, my carefully performed apologies. But now? Now I was vapor. I had vanished. And their house, that echo chamber of control and resentment, had started to reflect it. No one cleaned the baseboards. No one adjusted the curtains. No one knew where the bleach was stored. The silence they used to demand now stalked them. And that was the point. That was the punishment. I didn't need revenge that screamed. I needed revenge that settled in quietly and stayed. Every creaking floorboard, every undone button, every wrinkled shirt, that was me. Still there. But not for them. For me, because now I knew what they feared most wasn't rebellion. It was abandonment. The kind they couldn't spin into discipline. The kind they couldn't erase with blame. I had walked out with nothing. And that's exactly what I gave back. I didn't graduate on a big stage. There were no caps tossed in the air, no loud applause, no family crying in the front row. Just a pinning ceremony. A small room at the back of the nursing school, white scrubs, folding chairs, soft claps, and a name tag clipped to my chest that read, Kayla Morgan, LPN. Megan was there. She brought flowers in a mason jar and cried harder than I expected. I smiled, held her hand, and when they called my name, I stood up, tall, calm, steady. No one else came, and I didn't invite them. Not because I forgot, but because they were already gone. Not gone as in buried, gone as in erased. From my life. They weren't dead, but in my world they were dust, and I kept the shovel. Years passed. I moved into a small place near downtown Nashville. 1 bedroom, secondhand couch. A kitchen that always smelled like lavender and garlic. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I worked night shifts at the hospital, took care of people who needed soft voices and clean sheets and patience. The kind of things I used to give for free. Now I gave them with choice. And for the first time, I wasn't exhausted from being invisible. I was peacefully seen. I never changed my number, but it never rang. No calls from Dean, no emails from Lorraine, not even a text from Logan. What I got instead were updates, filtered through the grapevine like shadows flickering on the wall. Logan bounced between jobs, got evicted after trashing an apartment in Memphis. Dad collapsed at a grocery store. Doctors said it was exhaustion. Mom joined a Facebook group for parents of ungrateful children. She posted quotes about betrayal. She told people I'd gone cold, that I broke her heart, that I vanished without reason. Let her. Because the truth is heavier than they could hold. I cooked every meal in that house, folded every sheet, pressed every collar, smiled through every slap, cleaned every corner, held up every schedule. And when I left, they didn't just lose a daughter. They lost their system, their structure, their scapegoat. They raised me like a tool, so I let them rust. They treated me like I was disposable, so I disposed of them. People ask sometimes, why don't you visit? I just shrug and say, I left with nothing. That's exactly what I gave back. And it's true. Now when I wash dishes, they're mine. When I wake up early, it's for a patient who needs healing. Not a brother who won't wipe his own feet. When I fold laundry, it's 2 loads a week, not 10. And every Friday I take myself out. Dinner for one. Table by the window. No one watching me. No one judging what I wear or how much I smile. Just me. The girl who once lived in a silent prison. Now living in a silence she chose. I don't want revenge that burns. I want revenge that echoes. That slips under doors and lingers in the air. That grows louder in every undone chore and every quiet room. I want the kind of revenge that whispers, you lost something good, and you'll never earn it back. And every calm morning I wake up in peace. That echo grows louder. In their empty, crumbling house, some people think revenge is fire, a scream, a door slammed, a name dragged through the dirt. But the strongest revenge is living well, quietly, on your terms, without needing permission to breathe. Kayla didn't destroy them, she didn't expose them, she didn't even raise her voice. She simply walked away and let absence do the talking. And sometimes that echo never stops. If this story moved something in you, if you've ever been made to feel small, invisible, disposable, you're not alone, and you don't have to stay where you're not seen. Subscribe to Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending for more true stories where silence becomes power and healing becomes the final word. Because sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's the loudest strength you'll ever have.